Hey watch friends, today we're going to take a look at this latest offering from Feynman, and this is their Fjord model. This one was actually recently teased on a Mitch Mason unboxing video, if you check that one out, but we'll be taking a deep dive look into this particular version today. First, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the packaging. This does come in this outer pouch here, and you can see it is branded here with Feynman on the interior. It does come standard on this strap, and this is a leather NATO strap. Do note, this one here, it will actually come in addition to this leather NATO. It does come with an FKM strap as well. However, that was not included. This is a prototype that was sent in as a loaner to the channel to review, so do note if you see any scratches, scuffs, etc., they can be attributed to that. But this strap here, this is just an FKM that I had that I actually really like on this one. This came from a Reverie watch, but this one is not a stock strap, but we'll be looking at that throughout the video here. As far as the basic specs on this, it does come standard with a 2-year international warranty. The case is a little bit deceiving. I think it looks more like a 40mm case. However, on my calipers, from roughly the 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock position, it's actually closer to 42mm. This comes in at 41.7. The bezel, though, does step down, as you can see there, very pronouncedly, and this is coming in at 38.5. So overall, aesthetically, I think this is closer to a 40mm on the wrist than the specs would say, but it is technically closer to 42. Additionally, you can see this does have a very much down cut there and a very small case back. As far as the lugs, this is going to be a strap change friendly 20mm for the lugs, which again, I think is more in keeping with a 40mm watch. The lug to lug is very short at only 45.5mm. So it makes this for very versatile sizing. And again, that's small even for a 40mm, let alone for one closer to 42. As far as the thickness, this has a very high box crystal, as you can see there. However, even with that, this is only coming in at 12.8mm, so it's still relatively slender. It might pick up a little bit thicker on camera, however, I assure you, even to the top of that crystal, coming in under 13, which really is not too bad at all. The crystal, as just mentioned there, it is going to be a box sapphire crystal, and as you can see, very pronounced distortion on that edge, and we'll look at that and talk about that more as we go throughout this video. This sapphire crystal does have a blue inner AR coating as well, and I specify the blue for good reason. As we'll see as we get throughout the video, that blue, especially on this green Founders Edition dial, really does add some playfulness and actually picks up an iridescent kind of blue coloration for that, so that's a really neat touch there. The movement in this is going to be coming with a premium movement. This is coming with an ETA 2895-2, which if you're not familiar with that, it's similar to the 2892 in other ones that we've looked at as well. However, this one does have the second hand, a sub-dial second hand at around the 7 o'clock as opposed to a central second hand. It's going to have all the features you would expect. Even with the sub-dial, it does actually have still hacking. It does have your hand winding. It's a high beat, 42-hour power reserve, all those kind of good things. As far as the water resistance, this one is designed to be kind of an on land or in water type watch. So it does have decent water resistance coming in at 200 meters or 20 atmospheres of water resistance to accomplish kind of that do-all effect for you. As far as the weight, on this particular FKM strap, this is only coming in at 86.2 grams. I do suspect that the stock FKM strap would be very similar in weight to that, so I wanted to get that as a reference point. However, sticking to the stock strap options, on that leather NATO, it only bumps it up very slightly. That comes in at 89.6 grams on the stock leather NATO. So really a very negligible difference, and both are quite lightweight. Shifting over to a little of deeper dive here, this one's going to come in a variety of colors. Today, we are looking at the green Founders Edition version. There's a dark green version that actually it's a special edition. It's called, I believe, the Core. That one has on the perimeter for the compass, it's going to have Arabic for the numerals there. Additionally, there is going to be one that I believe is called Magma, and that is black with orange inlaid accents, really cool looking. And then there's a gray that does have white inlay accents as well, and I believe that's called the Tempest. Each of these are going to have a similar overall construction and characteristic. They're going to have radial brushing as you go throughout the dial itself. And then what's going to be most obvious at first glance is going to be the pronounced sandwich pattern that it has all the way around. Very uniquely patterned as you go through, and I think that's a very cool touch and accent to this, and we'll talk about that further. Additionally, the sub-dial is going to be what's actually your markers as well. So as you go through there, and then it does have, or the sandwich dial rather, and then it does have a 7 o'clock sub-dial for your second hand, as we've already looked at. The sandwich is going to have your 5-minute, and you can see kind of the cutouts as you go around the perimeter of the dial that are actually built into the dial itself. At the 12 o'clock position, though, it does have a unique cutout where it has a Roman numeral 12 that's cut into the dial. The pattern all the way around this is going to be a sunburst pattern, but it does have a nice radial brushing that goes through, and it's very cleanly applied. I like the look of that. I think it's very attractive, and it does add to that light play as we go across lighting conditions. Shifting over to the hardware, the closest that I can call this, I would call it kind of like a modified Dauphine, in that it does have a Dauphine shape, but in lieu of the traditional crease down the middle, this one actually has not only a loom strip, but it actually has towards the tip on both sides, it does have a slight line of brushing as well, which I think gives kind of that Dauphine crease look. On this Founders Edition particular color, they call the hardware a rose gold coloration, though to my eye, I would describe it as more of a traditional gold color, so it's kind of somewhat in between there for coloration. The second hand is going to be, you can call it a horn shape, you can call it a lizard tail, you can call it something more reproductive there for that one, but whatever you call it, it does have the sub-dial second with an accent color that is ticking away as well. For the loom on this one has one that's unique for me, and that is Chrono AMR Loom. So this does not have the more traditional Super Luminova option, but in loom performance, I will say, I was honestly a little bit disappointed in the result. However, I reached out to the brand, and that is something that they acknowledged. Unfortunately, on this prototype, this was just a printed in for the sandwich. However, on the actual production version, it's going to be significantly improved. That will actually be fully true sandwich applied loom for that. So do expect that to be enhanced, which is great because the pattern itself is extremely cool. It doesn't even carry over onto the sub-dial second hand, which that I expect will fade fairly quickly unless they can pump that one up as well. Shifting over to the bezel, the outer bezel on the case itself is going to be a fixed bezel, and as you can see, that is going to be primarily polished, and that does taper down into that sapphire crystal there. Once you get inside the sapphire crystal, you can see the real hallmark of this, which is going to be your inner, and this actually has a compass bezel. That's one of the things that's kind of cool and unique with this. That is going to be a rotating bezel, so with the compressor style, that will just rotate with this 2 o'clock crown here. And let's go ahead and actually get that moving. You can see that pops out, get that lined up, and then that just pushes in and screws down. So traditional type function there. But that compass, for many people that may be a novelty, but it is kind of a neat touch for that. And you can look at how that goes around. It does have clear markers all the way around, and that does have your cardinal directions as well as sub-directions for that too. So they went for a nice touch for that. You will notice the crystal does pick up a lot of distortion, so you do kind of have to put that at a little bit of an angle to get the best read for the compass function on this one. Additionally, as you might have seen there, that is going to be a bidirectional, as you would expect, and as is typical anytime you're dealing with the 2 o'clock crown or compressor style. Shifting over to the case, this one has very nice flowing lines to the case. You can see the mid case gives an extremely, extremely thin appearance there because it only has that tiny little line that is more flat surface. The rest is going to be very high, very deep cut for the chamfer there for the polish accents across the top, both of which serve to really slim that out. And then additionally, it does have a pronounced undercut for that chamfer as well. So it just gives a really unique look to this case shape, and it's one that I find quite attractive. It does have brushing down the center of the mid case. However, it's mostly, as you saw there, it's going to be mostly polished accents, again, which I think with that reflectivity does slim that out even further. The lugs are going to be pronouncedly downturned. However, do note they come right to the back of this case, which I think is a great touch there, and that's one that I always prefer. Makes it much more size versatile for different wrists. Additionally, flipping over to the lugs, you can see that the lugs do have nice cuts in. Again, just adds a lot of visual intrigue and allure to that. And then on the inner side of that lug cut, it is going to have brushing to kind of break up that polishing. So I think that was a good balance and mix there. In between the lugs, though, it does go back to that polish. So it really adds, instead of just being a traditional polish all the way around or traditional brush all the way around, I think it really breaks things up and adds visual interest. Shifting over to the crown side, you can see this one does not have integrated crown guards for that. So this is going to be without crown guards, though it does come a little bit as far as cutting in just due to the angle and shape of the crown or of the case itself. This does, of course, have dual crowns. Both of these crowns are going to be very petite. They're coming in at only 4.9 millimeters, though I didn't find them to be too bad to grip a hold of. They are very much on the smaller side. I usually prefer about 6.5. But I think with the somewhat dressier style, I think it's pretty well proportioned to this overall. Both of those are going to be screw-in crowns, and you can see that they do carry the same signature Feynman for the branding on that, and they are signed no Loom. As far as the case back is going to be solid here, so no exhibition. I believe the pattern does vary depending on the variant. On this Founders Edition, I would call that as kind of like a flame, maybe like a seaweed type pattern, but it's a neat looking pattern nonetheless. This does additionally have like a sector type effect here, and you can see it does have the text that goes around, nice milling, and it does have a nice mix of the brushing and the bead blasting there for that. So I think that's a good looking piece. Overall, I think it is a clean looking appearance, and it does have a screw-in case back for this one. As far as the bracelets on the stock versions, they are not going to be a tapering bracelet. So this one that I have on, I believe, does actually have a slight taper to it. The stock straps, though, here is that leather again. You can see that it does just go straight through. Both the FKM as well as this leather, they will have signing, and this is on the inside here, but you can see that Feynman signing on the back there, and they do both have nice patterns to it. It's going to be a center strip on the FKM version that I believe actually is fairly similar to this pattern, and a nice accent touch going down the middle. All right, so now that we have a better feel for the watch, let's try to get a better feel for this color. This color is a very uniquely shaded green. So first, I'm going to pull in a more traditional green. This one is an emerald green on a bronze Swordfish 40 from Zelos. And you can see there as to how that presents. You can see much more blue, much more of a teal kind of effect. But with that, I wanted to go ahead and actually pull in a teal watch. And you can see this is a teal Whirlpool Zelos Nova. And you can see this one has much more of a green than the more traditional teal, so much less blue than this is going to be. So it really is a quite unique shade. It's a very alluring shade, and one that I find picks up a lot of iridescence like we talked about in the outdoor, especially with that inner blue AR. So that's a really nice touch, and I think pretty cool. All right, so now that we have a better feel for the watch itself and some comparisons there, I did want to talk about some of the positives, some of my critiques, as well as the overall summary. First, for the positives. The dial on this, opinions may vary. However, I think it's striking. I think the finish of it, I like that radial brushing. I think the iridescent effect. I think the coloration on this Founders Edition, I think is very nice looking. The inlaid pattern, that sandwich dial, extremely unique, very cool looking, certainly stands out from the pack. That's one that I think is a nice touch. As far as the Loom, this one, if they can pump up the Loom like they have committed to doing, I think the Loom pattern is just extremely cool. That's something that, it may be somewhat of a novelty, but that's a cool touch, and that's something that I like and look forward to seeing more of. The distortion. This crystal I've talked about before, but I like playing around with box edge crystals and looking at that distortive effect. I just think that's a cool touch, and just look at all that playfulness. That's, I think, a lot of fun, so that's pretty cool. Additionally, the components on this are going to be premium. Everything is very nicely finished, nicely done. This prototype, do note, saw probably some dust particulates, some minor things there. We talked about the Loom, some of those kind of things. That's to be expected for prototypes that I'm confident will be all cleaned up in the production version. Otherwise, it's very well finished using a premium ETA movement. I know, obviously, there are higher end movements out there, but that's very nice for, it's not your run-of-the-mill, 2824 or what have you. So I think that's a great choice for the movement in this one. The case itself, I've talked about how elegant I think this is. I love the case shape for that. It's a really cool proportion there, almost like a spaceship kind of shape there, where it somewhat hovers, with that deep cut in there. It reminds me a little bit of the new Carl Sept Mai, if you recall that one or saw that one on the channel before, where that has almost like the floating kind of case appearance there. And then on wrist, this just hugs so nicely. It's very comfortable to wear on the wrist. I think it fits overall, especially with being only my 6.5-inch wrist and being a 42mm case. I think it wears a lot smaller overall in most situations. Now, some of the negatives. We talked about the distortion there. One of the things I talked about that as a plus, but it's also somewhat of a con. If you're trying to actually use this inner bezel, you do get a lot of distortion going on to that edge there, so you do have to kind of flip it to actually get for that. So that's something that's a little bit of a minor critique there. Dial legibility, with not having on the exterior, with not having 5-minute markers, or with individual minute markers rather, only having the 5-minute marks, getting precision is a little bit harder for legibility. Additionally, I will say this dial, depending on the lighting, with only having the sandwich cuts, and with this particular one with not having a ton of contrast between the colors like some of the other versions do, this one I found washes out a little more, and you can kind of blend in and lose some of those markers, making legibility a bit tough at times in certain lighting, but not too big of a problem at all. Additionally, I personally think, as cool as it is and as different as it is to have this compass bezel, I think I would have preferred just traditional dive or otherwise having the markers. I think it would have helped for legibility. Additionally, I think a little bit more functional for usage there for most people as well. But this is something that I expect that many people are going to appreciate, the compass bezel as well, since it's not something that everybody has in their collection. The second hand, this is true for the other Feynmans as well. That second hand shape, I think, is going to be a bit polarizing. I've had some comments about being a reproductive shape there and looking like it's swimming to an egg. That being said, for me, I think it's kind of a cool effect. It looks to me like a little slow motion lizard tail whipping around, or a snake tail, or what have you. So I think that's pretty cool. But I wasn't real sure to be honest about that either at first. But living with it, I have enjoyed it. And then finally, we talked about the Loom performance. That's something I would like to see kicked up here, and I'm confident that they will do so. So finally, where does that leave us? Overall, I think that this is a pretty well done watch. I think it's reasonably priced at $800 for pre-order, and this will be shipping in January or February of 2022. While $800 certainly is not cheap, for the movement you have in this, for the overall finishing, the unique accents, the touches, the case finishing, all of that kind of stuff, I think it is reasonably priced, so I think you're getting a fair amount for your money. For some, it's going to be a little bit too high, but if you're in the market for something like this, I do think it's a fair price, especially coming with 2 straps as well. For the specs on this, it is going to have your box edge sapphire crystal, your inner AR, all the nice touches there. I think you're getting a decent amount for your money there too. And then finally, I had already mentioned it before, but this is one that truly, if you like the style, it definitely stands out from the pack. It's sure to be something unique in your collection, unless you already have the Feynman Cove, which does have a similar case, but a very different dial option for that one. So this is one that I think will definitely stand out from anything else in your collection if you're interested in picking one up. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy this, please do hit that like button. And additionally, and most importantly, if you haven't done so already, please do hit that subscribe button. Tremendously helps the channel and is greatly appreciated. Finally, if you want to find out more, you can check out the description. There'll be links in there, including Amazon affiliate links, my Instagram account, all those kind of things. Thanks for watching.